Hello and welcome to this development video for the vehicle combat kits, and this one's going to be pretty much focused on the space combat kit and specifically on the engine component, formerly known as the vehicle engines 3D component and now called the rigid body engine 3D. So, if we're going to have a look at the spaceship, we've got this rigid body engine 3D, and the name was changed just because this is pretty much what makes it different. It's a physics-based engine, so we'll call it rigid body engine 3D, and maybe in future a kinematic non-physics engine will be added as well. But let's have a look at this, at what we've got here. Now, before, this engine had some settings for steering and movement, for cruise and boost, and that was sort of hard coded into the component. And so it was kind of difficult to add extra engine modes alongside the cruising and boost. Let's say you've got super cruise or warping or whatever it is. And let's say you wanted to add those in, it was kind of hard to do it before. But now there's a flexible engine mode system that's been added. And let's take a look at what it looks like. So if I go here and open the control settings, I've got three settings here. And these are basically engine modes and the settings for them. So first of all, you can see I've got this new mode here called Cruise, and this is a scriptable object you can create. I'll show you in a minute why that's useful, but basically you can right click in the project tab anywhere, go create VSX engine mode, and create a new one. And you can assign it on one of these settings here. So that means that in this cruise mode, we've got these steering values and these movement values. And these are going to be, for the rigid body engine 3D, these values are forces. And I'll probably be adding sort of redoing the custom editor from before to make it so that you can set the movement values as speed or force, depending on which one you're sort of familiar with in terms of what you want. Yeah, but you have these values here that you can set. And we've also got these reverse movement coefficients. So that means when you're going on the negative of the movement axis, what do you want to What do you want to multiply the movement force with? So when we're going negative on the x-axis, which is left, we don't want any change, so we just multiply it by 1. Same thing for y, but when we're going back on the z-axis, that's in reverse, we want just 0.1, because we just want to go slowly in reverse and fast forward. Alright, so now we have these steering modulators and movement modulators, and now this is something that's going to be added throughout the kit, these modulator components or settings. And basically what a modulator is something that multiplies a value by another value, typically something from 0 to 1 that you can create in another component. So a modulator is a component that derives from the modulator base class. It means it inherits from the modulator base class. This is just a class that provides a function you can access to get a value that, as I said, is typically from 0 to 1, but you can make it whatever you want. And you can use that to multiply the various things, in this case the steering or the movement. And the utility of this is that it easily enables you to create other components anywhere in your game, and in any context, that can kind of modify the amount of steering or movement that the player has. Let's say the player gets hit by an EMP missile or something like that, and it kind of fries their avionics for a few seconds. You could have a modulator that set the steering to zero, or some low value, for a few seconds, and then returned it back to one. And the utility of this is you can add all the modulators here to the steering and movement, and there's no dependencies. You don't have to go and write, stuff in the scripts that come with the space kit. You can just sort of create your own modulators separate from the kit and just drag them in here. So it's very low dependency and very modular, so you can keep things clean that way. And we'll see what these actually do in a second, but I want to keep going with the engine modes for a second. If we go to the exhausts on this ship, we have these four exhausts, one on each engine, and you can see these have this engine 3D visual effects controller. And what this does is it gives you this super powerful way to control the visual effects for the engine, and also has settings for each engine mode. So for this mode, we've got cruise. We've got we adjusting the settings for the cruise mode, and in this mode you can animate particles and renderers. Now, before, in the previous component, it was the jet exhaust visual effects controller. There were a bunch of settings there that were kind of hard coded in, that were based on what came with the demo, like the halo value and the glow, and that was sort of hard coded in and wasn't very flexible. So what this has is a very flexible system for controlling particles and renderers, and you'll see what that means in a second. Let's have a look at a particle here. You can see for the flames, it's a particle system. We're animating the start speed, that's how fast the particles shoot out. And it's saying that we're adding a curve here. So that means that in this cruise mode, as we go from 0 to full throttle, the start speed of the particles goes from 0 to 30. So we can easily animate this particle speed, which means that you can sort of create a long jet of exhaust as you throttle up. And if I go down here, so in the particles, at the moment you can kind of animate the start speed, and that's it. But I'll be adding more settings here for what you can control in future. Alright, so if we go down here to the animated renderers, what this does is, it enables you to basically control your shaders without writing any code. So if you look at this glow particle system, what we're doing here is we can say, okay, we want to access the. So first of all, you set the renderer, which is this particle system. It gets the material from this renderer. You can select the material index, or just leave it at 0 for the if there's only one material. And if on that material shader, you can set the color with this key. You can set whatever key, shader key you want, and you can animate it on a gradient as you go from 0 to full throttle. So that goes, you can set the color to whatever you want along this gradient. Alright, and the other thing we can do is, let's have a look at this distortion. We've set the float settings here, so you can change shader float settings now as you go from 0 to full throttle again. You can set a curve for what the float value of that shader key should be. So in this case it goes from 0 to 0.5, and that's the distortion strength. This is just a standard particle unlit shader distortion value. But if you have your own custom shaders and stuff like that, you can animate any kind of setting you want. Just put the shader key in here, and you can set the float value with a curve. All right, so that's what you can do for each engine mode. And we've got 3 different engine modes here. I've set up cruising, the boost, and warp. And it's all just different iterations of what I just showed you. And let's have a look at the demo to see the whole thing in action. Alright, by the way, you just saw there a rifle sort of falling down on the ground. And that's just an object with a rigid body, and it's just something we can walk over and pick it up. I'm going to make a separate video about that because it's not what I want to focus on for this video, but the whole pickup system, module pickup system, is much easier to do now. Alright, so we'll jump into this ship, and if I fly around, you can see the exhausts coming out there with a bit of distortion, and then if I go down to 0, there's no distortion, and we've set the curve on the glow there to go from not from 0 to like max value, but from some kind of base value to the max value along that curve. So that means that it stays kind of on a certain amount even when you're at 0 throttle. Alright, and if I go to boost, you can see a much brighter glow, a jet of exhaust going out, and it kind of smoothly transitions between the two. Now I've just set it up here, so if I press a key here, we go to warp mode, and you can see there's a whole new set of engine effects for warp. And it smoothly transitions in and out of that. So, and what I've also set up here with the engine modes we were looking at before is that I'm flying around like this, but when I go into warp mode, I can't control the ship. And that, typically you might have, a ship that when it's in warp mode, you might have it kind of at the scene center, and you're just showing a warp effect go past as you load the next scene or something like that. And you don't want the player to actually be able to control the ship during that time. So you can set that up in the engine mode on the engine component to have 0 steering and 0 movement for warp mode. And then when you get out of that mode, you're back to controlling the ship again. Alright, so that's the modes in action with the effects you can see there. And the sound effects are going to be the same thing pretty much, with the mode settings. I haven't got that in yet, but that's going to basically follow the same format as the visual effects as well. Now I want to show you something. So you can see here I've got I can fly around like this, and I've got a certain amount of maneuverability and speed. Now if I fly in here between the two plates, suddenly I can only turn very slowly, and I can only kind of roll very slowly, and I can only everything's much slower than before, but as soon as I get out, I can go back to normal. Now that is what, if we go back to the spaceship, that is what this steering modulator and movement modulator are doing. If we are going to have a look at them, this is called a volume modulator. Now there's another thing that's going to be, it is added to the kit now, and it's going to be sort of integrated throughout a bunch of different contexts. But what it is basically a spatial volume in 3D that where inside of that you can have some kind of effect. In this case, we're changing the amount of steering and speed that the player can have. So, for example, if you're flying into a space station, inside the space station, you might want to only be able to move around and turn very slowly, because it's a kind of confined space. So, with a volume, you can do that very easily. And what this does is modulates inside a spatial volume, which is, if you have a look at this cube here, this rectangular prism, is a volume. And when we're inside there, something's gonna change. So if we go back over to here, what this component does is it says when we're inside a volume that's on this layer called interior, we want to output a value of 0.3, and if we outside the volume, we'll just output a value of 1. And in this case, it's multiplying that value to the movement. So it means inside this area, we're going to have 0.3 movement, and outside of it, we're going to have full movement, 1. And we've got the same thing here on the steering as well, and those two have been added to the control settings. So you can add all kinds of different modulators to the engines to change things around, in different circumstances. And it's all possible without, digging into any of the code of the kit. You can kind of create your own separate scripts, keep them in your own folders, and just drag them into here and use them like that. And it's much easier to do, much more modular than sort of writing your own code inside the components that come with the kit. And if we go to we look up the modulator component, you can see this is just a base class that returns you can call the value function and get a float value. So you can inherit from this and create your own modulators that can do whatever you want. You can override this function and return any value you want at any time, and that can be passed into the engine, and it's going to be added to a lot of other things as well. Anywhere that you might want to kind of modify it dynamically as you go along, that the modulator component will allow you to do that. And that's kind of one half of the what's being added. There's the modulator and there's conditions, and I'll just show you that real quick. So if we go to the player and we've got like the input scripts, we've got input update conditions, and this condition component is like the modulator, except it returns a true or false. And what that means is you can create your own scripts that determine if this input should be running or not, and if your scripts say no, then this input will not be running. And that means that you can sort of switch things on and off, without having to, again, create a lot of dependency between different parts of your code and the space kit and things like that. So that's another thing that's being added as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Those are the major things that are being added to the engine component, the spaceship sort of engine. If you have any comments on what I've shown so far, or you have ideas for what you'd like to be added to the engine component, let me know, because I can add it right away, make sure it's in there. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.